Hello, and welcome back to our podcast, Ordinary Wisdom. This week we are joined with my history professor, Mr. Lee Carter. It's great to have you.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I guess we'll just jump right in, starting off with like childhood and early life. What was your childhood like?
So I was an only child, and I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Franklin County, Georgia. So there was a lot more cows than people in Franklin County kind of place. So I was an only child, but my grandparents lived nearby, so I could like walk up to their house, ride my bike to their house.
Yeah.
So a lot of kind of time to think and play by myself and that kind of stuff. So that was basically my childhood was kind of like that. We're in church every time it's open, and sometimes it's not. Played a lot of sports, that sort of thing. So
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I guess kind of your parents, what were some of the values and kind of the important things that they taught you that like still stand in your life today?
So the things that my family really valued that I brought with me to adulthood, one I would say is hard work, right? Like God created us to work. Yes, work is hard because the world is fallen. Yet
Mm-hmm.
God created us to work and to work hard
Yeah.
and to do our best and everything. To finish what you started,
Mm-hmm.
right, is another thing. And to work with integrity and be above reproach in everything you do. I remember one thing my grandpa taught me, because when I was kind of early in my teenage years, I didn't necessarily work a lot of other jobs because we had a farm. So I worked on the farm a lot.
Yeah.
So my grandpa would plant extra rows of peas,
Mhm.
okay? And then I could pick the peas and we would sell the peas.
Cool.
So one of the things my grandpa did was he would take the bushel basket and he would make sure that instead of being flat on the top, you had to round it across the top there. And he said, you got to make sure you give them good measure,
Yeah.
right? And so there's a sense of which you want to make sure that you go above and beyond to do what's right and best, right? So that if somebody biblically, like if someone accuses you of doing wrong, they're gonna be ashamed, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing you can learn pretty well with working on a farm like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, like I said, you are my history teacher.
mhm.
So I guess what in your childhood and growing up kind of encouraged your love of history?
Well, some of it's good and some of it's bad. On the good side, my mom liked to take us on places to vacation in places where we'd see things like Charleston and Fort Sumter and things
Mhm.
like that were definitely historical. So that was good. I like to read about wars and battles. That was also good. But then I also like to play video games that were history related, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't recommend that. But I did play like Robert E. Lee Civil War Generals 2 and the Age of Empires and
Huh.
things like this. And I would play those games, and then I would want to go read about them.
Yeah.
So it kind of got me in a bad way, in a sense. And I don't let my son play video games because I
Mhm.
know how addictive it was for me. But
Yeah.
for me, that did kind of get me hooked, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Alrighty. What did you study
Mhm.
specifically, and where did you go?
So I went to the University of Georgia, which was kind of always where I was going to go because mom went there. My grandma actually went there, which is another pretty good story. It's like my grandma went there in like 1950, which is pretty early for a rural lady to be going to college, And I went to the Georgia football games growing up, so it was something I was going to do.
Yeah.
It's a good place to study history too. So I studied history, then I stayed on and got my master's in education. And so that was kind of, I stayed for 6 years, but I at least got 2 degrees.
Mhm.
So there's that. It did take me 4.5 years to get my first degree because I was, back in that day, you could get away with taking 12 or 13 hours and keep your scholarships.
Yeah.
They changed that kind of after I went through, but at that point, I could pull that off. So
Yeah.
full load was 12.
Yeah.
So that was
Okay.
kind of took the slow route there and made sure that I was able to do other stuff, I guess.
Yeah. What was your college experience like?
So the positive of my college experience, and part of the reason I was taking more 12 to 14 hours, I think I took 15 like once or twice. Okay, was I was involved in a college ministry in my church, and we did a whole lot of ministry stuff around campus and such. And so my church's college ministry was kind of like you being involved in the church and in the campus ministry at the same time.
Yeah.
It was integrated there. And so I made a lot of good friends and, learned a lot about it. It's almost like I ended up getting the readings like I had gone to seminary while I was also in college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the benefit of that was kind of why my parents were cool with me not going that fast, because I was
Yeah.
reading all this other stuff on the side
Yeah,
and being
okay.
involved in these things 3 or 4 times a week. So
Yeah.
Yeah. What in your eyes do you think is like the most important thing to focus on in college?
I'm gonna give you 2 things on this one. One is to find your people
Mm-hmm.
and to build relationships with them, right? So I know for a lot of people, you come out of high school and you just, I don't know if you're, a lot of people probably like I was, where it's like, man, these people, I'm kind of ready to be done with a lot of them. I
Yeah.
don't know if y'all were like that or not, but then I went to college and I kind of floundered around a little bit my first year, and
Mm-hmm.
but the second year I really kind of stuck, found my people, got involved, made the friends that would really be a
Yeah.
part of shaping who I was, and then just really invested my time and energy in those relationships and doing God's work in the city that He planted me in. So that's one, is to find your people and build biblical foundations for your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. Two is committing yourself to a local church and multi-generational discipleship. Okay. And so one of the things that I think is really dangerous in our culture, among people who are Bible believing Christians, is the danger of you surround yourself with a bunch of people who are 19, 20, 21 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody who's a generation ahead of you.
Okay.
Okay. And it's so easy to create for yourself a single generation like set of voices
Yeah.
that are unable to see the nuances beyond what you're telling them.
Yeah.
Okay, because their life experiences are not that different from yours.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, and then two, when I say the local church, just remember that campus ministries are good, but campus ministries are not the church.
Yeah.
Okay, and so one of the things I think that as like Protestant Christians, that we, and especially as Americans, that we've kind of have this anti-authoritarian mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and just understanding that as believers, we need the authority of leaders in a church over us, right? That all of us are designed to be underneath shepherding,
Yeah.
that can call us out. So those are big things, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And before we move on to career, sorry to go off script just a little bit.
Oh, I can't do that. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
What was it like going to a public university being a Christian? And is it something that you necessarily recommend?
So I would say that the only way I recommend it is if you know what you're signing up for and you know how you're going to approach it.
Mhm.
Okay. And so for me, studying history at a school where I don't think any of my professors were believers, I wrote stuff from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
In doing that, I had to make sure that I really was careful to not leave any holes in my reasoning, right?
Yeah.
Then also, like, when am I going to take a stand on something that I know is wrong? Like, what are the situations in which to
Mhm.
take? You don't want to be arguing with them all the time, but
Yeah.
there's like hills upon which to die, man. Like, what am I not going to let them say
Yeah.
without me taking a stand on it? And two, like, I know some really solid people that go to Clemson and study stuff like engineering or something. And it's
Mhm.
like, after you get past your biology class, engineering is not so much Christian or non-Christian.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And it's like there's a Christian way to approach life, but like you design a bridge, there's math to that, right?
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
understand it, but like, so what, right? If you're a Christian or not. So I think there's things like that. And I also had one of my friends at Georgia was a really solid believer and wanted to study, get his PhD in some sort of like genetic biology thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And he wanted to be able to be a recognized voice that the academy had to hear what he said.
Yeah.
So he went to MIT to get his PhD.
Wow.
Okay. Because he knew that if he went to somewhere that was less prominent, people wouldn't listen to what he said because he was a Christian. And so then if he's a Christian, but he went to MIT, then that checks their elitist boxes, so they have to listen to it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I guess what I'm saying is there's situations to do it, but you got to believe that the Lord has called you to it for a particular reason. I'm not
Yeah.
recommending, my kids that are teenagers, they're not probably going to go to a public university, right? Hopefully I get a full-time job here in North Greenville and my kids will go there.
Yeah.
Right? That's what
Yeah.
they're going to do, right?
Mhm.
Because they understand the finances of that.
Mhm.
But
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, going into career, like, I guess just to keep it simple, why are you a historian?
So the thing for me is to kind of tell you how I ended up doing what I'm doing now. So I taught middle school for 16 years. Okay. And my kids got to the point where they were just not comfortable in what the public school had become.
Yeah.
All right. And they wanted out. And so what I did was the last of the 16 years I mentioned were actually, I was at an online school while homeschooling my kids while I started working on my PhD to get
Yeah.
enough hours to start the, semi-slave labor that is being an adjunct, right? Where you get paid like they pay you in peanuts and, call it experience, basically. It's fine. You just, that that's what you signed up for, right? And the big thing for me is I believe that Christians need to be, kind of as I was mentioning with my friends earlier, is there is no reason that Christian thinkers cannot be respected in the academy, right? In terms of being historian. Look, Christianity is a historical religion. Okay. Either Christ raised from the dead or he did not.
Yep.
Okay. That is a historical question. And thus, to me, history is the type of thing that Christians should be very big on because we need to understand history, not only for that particular reason, but just being able to do a strong job of understanding and interpreting history so that we understand the world we live in and then being able to help students think through those things and not be from a secular worldview perspective.
Yeah.
And so training you guys up to think historically in a way that then goes and challenges people who are coming from against that worldview and have truth on your side and understand how does a Christian think through this issue. This is a hard issue. What is a Christian way of thinking of this? Not that there's only one way a Christian can think about everything, but like how can we think about these things historically? And I think that there's a way in which I want that to be like a school like this one. I want this to be viewed as a rigorous school where the degree means the same things it does from Clemson.
Yeah.
Right. I want to see one day that you guys look back on it and people are like, that degree from Anderson is the same as the degree from Clemson academically, where people don't look down their noses on the Christian university.
Yeah.
And so part of my passion is let's get ourselves to that level. And I know Landon will probably say that I'm pretty hard, right? And part of the reason I'm pretty hard is because I want to raise y'all's ability up to where you get out of this class and you're at the level historically as a thinker. It don't matter if you've gone to Clemson or Carolina or Furman, you're going to be at the same place as a historical thinker as you would have been coming out of a class there.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I feel very passionate that should be the case. Not going to lower our standards.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm thinking.
That's great. I guess I know you said that being an adjunct is difficult, but what would you say you love the most about your job?
So the thing I like about teaching history at the college level is compared to when you're teaching back in the K-12 schools, when the students weren't getting it. One of the problems in the K-12 system now is it's blamed on the teacher. Like, what are you going to do to get them where they need to be? Okay. what I like about teaching college is the question is rather, what are you going to do to get where
Yeah.
you need to be, right?
Mhm.
At the same time, I still love doing what I did before, which is providing the scaffold to get the student where they need to be,
Mhm.
right? Where I think through what do I need to do differently or better to help my students get there, or what are the opportunities I want to offer for them. So I keep the same way of thinking, but now the responsibility is actually where it ought to be, which is on the student to learn.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it gives me the freedom to do it as opposed to feeling the constraint of I'm going to, by the time my kid was done with the test, I've got an email from their parent because they snuck off to the bathroom and texted their mom. So I've got a nasty email within 2 seconds after they finished their test,
Yeah.
right? So we don't have that here, right?
Mhm.
Because if you did bad, your mama can't email me and say, hey, what's wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
Instead, me and you talk and we say, let's get together. Let's figure out what we need to do to get you there.
Mhm.
And I love doing that because I love people and I want to see them be successful.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about it.
Yeah. Do you have anything more to say about like why history is important?
So just to kind of, oh, this is where my notes, if you could see my notes, you would see why I can't read them. Just in general, like that we need to be able to think well about the world around us
Mhm.
in order to be able to analyze it like really critically so that we are not passively just consuming what everybody says all the time, right?
Yeah.
That we are actively thinking and engaging with the world we live in, and the history behind it is a big part of that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now going on to life.
Mhm.
How has your relationship with God shaped your life?
So, just in terms of the bigger context of where we're talking about here, I would say that for me, every decision that I make goes through the context of like the matrix of scripture and the glory of God is the way I'm going to think through things, right? And so that means my time, my money, my abilities, right? And how I'm going to use those things. So, like last year after my first year of doing adjunct work here and at another school locally, there was a position I could have probably gone after that would have been a full-time one. But it was not something I felt like I needed to do because I'm going to finish my PhD, but I also believe that I want to be involved in my kids' lives and in my church, right? And I did not believe that the extra money per se, like we could make it work,
Mhm.
right, at our house without me working full time.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I made the choice that what was more valuable at this point was me being available to do things with the church, do things with the kids. Like another thing I do is I volunteer coach their track team, right? They're basically there's a homeschool track team in Greenville called Greenville Hurricanes. They're really good.
Mhm.
And I coach on that team, and that's a lot of time. And I don't make any money to do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, money is money. You got to pay your bills.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's like, what matters here?
Mhm.
Right? Like I can work and make money later, but my kids ain't gonna be under 18 and in the house later,
Mhm.
right? And so that's just an example of how we operated through what I believe is how I'm going to be able to glorify God more is by me not feeling like I had to get it done as fast as I could and make more money.
Yeah.
No, that's not it. You do need to pay your bills. God is
Mhm.
calling you to work, right? But at the same time, it's not all about money.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah. Yeah.
another thing with that is like we used to live in a kind of a suburban neighborhood that was kind of overpriced because of the schools are more highly regarded.
Mhm.
So we decided to move to a less highly regarded area where we were able to find a spot where we actually saved a whole lot of money.
Mhm.
This part of the reason I can do this. Whereas we found an awesome old house that's really cool and has like an acre and a half, so me and my son can play disc golf out there and stuff
Yeah.
like that, right? But it's like we save money on that. But why were we wanting to do this? Because we were thinking through how can we steward our finances for God's glory.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so those are mundane seeming decisions, but when you think through them from a biblical God honoring framework, it shapes how you think about things.
Mhm.
Little stuff, you know?
Yeah.
How has it been like adopting children?
So, yeah, my wife and I adopted 4 kids from foster care, and I would say it is both rewarding and very difficult. Um, in the sense, rewarding in the sense that I believe God has called all believers to care for orphans and vulnerable children, right? The widow, the sojourner among us, and all that. You see that throughout Scripture, right? So that's one thing, and I believe that not that's not for everybody, but I do think that everybody needs to take seriously what God is calling us to do. Secondly, just recognizing that like God, His only Son is Jesus, so therefore if we are believers, we are all adopted as His children, and so in a sense of which, like, normalizing adoption, right? So like my kids are not afraid of saying they're adopted, right? It's like that's a normal thing to us. We don't have to like hide that or pretend or whatever, right? So it's something to celebrate in that regard. It's a challenge because one, the system is hard to work through. All right, the government system regarding adoptions is very hard. It's very frustrating, and you need people to help you advocate for the kids and what's in their best interest. And that's tough. And we learned it, but it was a lot of work and it's hard. And two, any kid who's come through foster care system, there's a reason for that, and it's hard. And there's traumas and difficulties from the past that you got to work through. So there's a challenge there, but then to be able to see on the other side of a lot of this, the reward of what God's done through their lives is very rewarding.
In your marriage, what values and principles like govern the marriage?
So one of the things I think about is that I value us being on the same page and in consensus. And that's something that I believe very strongly in, fighting to be on the same page. Okay. In the sense, I don't mean like fighting to be on the same page, but like you struggle for that. You don't give up on that. Does that make sense? And so, one of the things my mom, I remember, would tell me was, don't let the sun go down while you're still angry. Don't give the devil a foothold, right? So I'm very big on, sometimes to the annoyance of my wife, of like, no, before we go to bed tonight, we're going to get on the same page. We're going to be in unity.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to reach unity on every decision, okay? That doesn't mean that we necessarily agree that we think exactly the same, but that we trust the overall vision and direction we're going, right? And we have a marriage where we believe in complementarian, right, view, where we believe that God has designed men and women differently for a reason. Yet at the same time, that does not mean that I tell my wife to submit to me. If you ever had to tell your wife to submit to you, you failed already.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And so that's never a conversation we have, right? So there's the way that I lead in my marriage is for us to reach a consensus rather than me determining this is what we have to do, right? And when I lead in that way, my wife can trust the heart behind, I really think this is what we need to do. And she trusts that. And we don't have the, see, I told you so, if it goes not the best, right? Because there's this, man, you gotta fight for that unity, right? Like you gotta, so don't ever, I would say, like, sink back from that. Don't be passive from that. Like you've got to be fight for unity. And I would say things like, man, your finances, you gotta be on the same page with that, right? Like, one of the things that was really baffling to me is I used to know some people who said they were believers, but the husband and wife had different bank accounts. I'm like, why would you do that? Right? Like, it's all God's money and we're stewarding it. So why would there, like, it doesn't make sense, right? So yeah, that's kind of the principle.
Yeah, I like that.
And then sort of.
Oh, I got one more. Sorry, I left one out that was really important to me. The another big principle for us in our marriage is that the discipleship of the kids is the responsibility of the parents. Okay, so my kids go to their youth group, but I'm actually take it or leave it with their church youth group. Okay, because the person who should be discipling the people should be discipling the kids are my wife and I. Okay, So one of the big kind of principles that governs our family and our marriage is the importance of things like studying the scriptures together.
Mhm.
So ever since the kids have been little, we will sit down at dinner and we will read the Bible together, and we will work on exegeting it right correctly,
Yeah.
biblically, faithfully. So we read through books of the Bible.
Mhm.
Like, we don't just pick things, right? So like right now we're in Isaiah. We read, I think, 29 last night.
Yeah.
Okay, so every time we have dinner together, we're gonna read chapter in Isaiah till we finish.
Mhm.
And with that too, it's like we're going to learn to interpret the Bible faithfully. Where gently pushing back on my kids if they interpret something that's like, that's in the Bible, but that's not what that says.
Yeah.
So we're going to be faithful to what the text actually says too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, that one was like the big one for me.
Yeah. I love it. I guess sort of segueing into like your own personal beliefs. Um, how do you, because I know this is something that we've talked about before,
Mm-hmm.
is like, how do you bridge the gap between Christianity and politics? Because the church is, it's seeming as if Christianity is sort of just separating itself from politics
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to engaging in it in a biblical way.
Right. So there's a concept with this that is the stances of Christ and culture.
Mhm.
Okay. There's a guy named Niebuhr who wrote about this in either the 40s or 50s, and had an interesting book on this. Not that I agree with everything that he said. D.A. Carson more recently wrote another book that was kind of revisiting that. But the models of Christianity and culture and their interaction is
Yeah.
one to kind of study on that. So I would say for me, I view it this way. One is that we don't put our hopes in a person or a party, okay? Because the people in the world around us are sinful and they will fail you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's number one is there's too much messianic hope put in. If this person or party wins, everything's gonna be good. And if they lose, then all hell will break loose.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's it's an absurd kind of thing that we've created,
Mhm.
and frankly, it's way popular in our country to think that way, one way or the other.
Yeah.
All right, and that's not, I think, biblical. Two, if you tie Christianity to a leader or party, you strongly risk bringing the gospel into disrepute by associating Christ with things that are not explicitly biblical.
Mhm.
Okay, and I wanted to read that exactly as I wrote it, because I think it's very important that we recognize that while there might be some reasons I vote a certain way, that does not mean that I agree with all of a certain party platform.
Yeah.
Okay, and I do not think that either way you look at it, we have two major parties. Neither one of our parties has a biblical platform.
Mhm.
Okay, there are problems with both of them.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so as a result, we have to start with that framework and go from there,
Mhm.
right? So basically, we have to see what are the biblical issues at play and that are going to be affected by the result of this particular election I'm currently voting on, and then
Yeah.
vote accordingly, right?
Mhm.
Which then means I might vote slightly differently. I could vote differently on a local or state election than I do national, because
Mhm.
there's different issues at play,
Yeah.
right? So like a mayor of a city does something very different than a president of the United States.
Yeah.
And things shift very differently based on that.
Mhm.
And I might vote for different kinds of people based on what the things at play are.
Mhm.
And sometimes that means you might have to look past the party label
Yeah.
in some cases, right? And two, another thing is Christians have to be able to discuss things with people they disagree with,
Yeah.
right? And be able to have those discussions.
I guess that was pretty much it. But what do you think of like the current state of American politics?
Well, let's see. What did I say differently on this one? I know what I want to say. Oh, I think I wrote it on the back. I did. There it is, right there. So one of the things I think is been when we see the mess that is American politics now,
Mhm.
it's easy to see the problem and identify this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we have not done well at reviewing the roots of where the problem came from.
Mhm.
Okay. And I think that when you see, regardless of which side of the political spectrum you're looking at, the problems that we see, there's cancers underneath it, right?
Yeah.
So, somebody's got cancer, they might die of pneumonia, technically, but really they died of cancer.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I would say the cancer in our case right now is social media, more specifically in the internet behind that.
Yeah.
Okay. For a couple of reasons. One, when you monetize clicks, then that means the emphasis on conflict and disagreement is valuable
Mhm.
as opposed to being at peace and unity.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a culture that has now monetized conflict. Okay. And when you do that, then you're asking for more conflict.
Yeah.
Okay. And two, the other thing associated with that is that you view the other side as an existential threat.
Mm.
And you can hear that coming out of both sides' mouths. Two, another thing associated with that is the prevalence of echo chambers, right? Which I think most people probably know what that is, but basically that people are going to start shaping their news cycle, and the way the algorithms work is to
Yeah.
put you to where you only hear from people that you agree with.
Mhm.
You don't hear from the other side. You don't evaluate their views and opinions. All right. And then another thing associated with that is the concept of what we could call keyboard warriors, right? Where we'll sit behind our keyboard and type nasty things about people that we wouldn't say to their face,
Yeah.
right? And so you put all those things together and you get this toxic, deadly sort of disease that is American political discourse.
Mhm.
And I think that that's kind of the diseases right there. And so I would say my small step on that is don't say something on the internet you wouldn't say to the person to their face if you're sitting right next to them at the table.
Yep.
And that's one thing. Two, have relationships with people that are different than you, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
As opposed to only people that think exactly what you think, right? Have some friends that might vote for a different person than you,
Yeah.
right? Like, could we do that? That would be nice, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that those are the kind of, and not that that's an answer, but like when you recognize what the disease is, you can recognize how to treat it better, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty, wrapping up. What is your weekly wisdom for this week?
All right, so I got one that my college pastor told me, which was it's easier to steer a moving ship. Okay. The idea being that if you are sitting in a dock, it's hard to turn the big ship, right? But once you're out at sea, you can steer it. So the concept of this, I think, applies in a lot of areas of life, but the idea would be, I don't know what God's will for me is. I don't know what I should do for a career. I don't know who I should marry, right? But the answer to that is not sitting on your butt and doing nothing,
Yeah.
right? It's like, do the things that you know God has called you to do. Do something in the world for God's glory. And then, as another thing my college pastor would say, is then you see who's to your left and right, right? And then, oh, okay, so I'm a guy. That's the girl over there. She's moving the same direction I am. Maybe we should get married, right?
Mhm.
And or like, here's where God has given me a heart for this. Maybe this is what I should pursue as a career right now. But then once you're moving, then God can make it real clear. Here, this door is closed. This door is closed. And that's how you'll end up kind of knowing which way to go.
Yeah.
For me, that looks like I was wanting to go to seminary and get an MDiv at one point, and I got a heart virus, and I was kind of laid low where I couldn't do anything. So I had to keep my insurance because I just finished my grad school degree.
Yeah.
You know how I was going to keep my insurance? My mom's a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
so I needed to have continuity of insurance. So I started teaching. So point was, I was moving one way. I wanted to do it for a good reason, but God's like, nah, that ain't it. He laid me down on a couch for 3 months in the summer of 2008, which was not a good time to be finding a teaching job. So I was laying there feeling miserable while also being unemployed at 24 years old. Point is, God opened the doors for me, but you can't just sit there and be like, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
So it's easier to steer a moving ship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Well, thank you for coming and meeting with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right,
It's
enjoyed it.
great to hear about it. Have a good week.
All right.